Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's panel on big data in Thailand's insurance industry. Last month, the Office of Insurance Commissioner, as shared earlier, promoted an open data policy aiming to enhance transparency and security by linking insurance data and the banking sector. This initiative is expected to foster the development of financial products and services to better meet the needs of consumers in Thailand. As data from various sources such as IoT devices, social media, and telematics continue to grow, insurers have unprecedented opportunities to assess risk, tailor products, and improve claims and customer engagement. Today, we will explore how these trends are shaping the future of insurance in Thailand, discuss the challenges of data privacy, and examine how companies can responsibly harness this data revolution, learning from global and regional examples. With us today are a esteemed panel. Gentlemen, I'd like you to kindly introduce yourself and briefly explain your current role and how your firms are working on big data. And perhaps as an icebreaker, maybe you could share with the audience, what was the last thing you purchased online and what type of data did you provide and where do you think that went? Maybe we start off with Henry.
Sure thing, thanks, Cyrus. So the last thing I purchased was a crash course on big data.
Oh, okay.
Just kidding. Let me think. It was 11/11, so the law discount on Shopee and Lazada. So I purchased myself a three-way charger for my iPhone, AirPods, and whatnot. I think the data probably went to a lot of the companies providing products and services online. Yeah, so I'm contributing my information for the greater good, right? So. In terms of my background and a little introduction about myself, my name is Henry from Munich Re Automation Solutions. So it's a wholly owned subsidiary of Munich Re, and I represent my company today in the role of a business development person, and been doing this for several years. Right? In my past life, when people ask me what do, I usually would say I'm a yoga instructor. That usually gets some kind of reaction from people, but they soon realize that I made sense, right? Because I mean yoga instructor not in the sense of bending over backwards for clients senselessly. I'm talking about being nimble and stand ready to make changes, challenge the status quo with new data and trends that are coming to light, right? Emerging. So. As an agent of change, I have to be, always ready and not just, stay firm on what I believe in the past because the world is changing very rapidly. In the past, I also I worked in the banking industry, so I was a huge consumer of data. So I'm really excited about the topic today because I've come to realize in the past that data by itself has very little intrinsic value. Right? It has to come together. You need experts to do forensic on the data, study it carefully to bring some meaning out of the data itself. Right? So by extension, I think big data also needs that kind of discipline and scrutiny.
Very interesting. We hear your perspective on how data is utilized, not only from the reinsurance perspective, but from your experience in banking and your extensive experience in online shopping as well. So we look forward to hearing more about that.
Sure.
Jan?
Sure. I'm also going to follow Henry and start with what I bought. The last thing I bought online, I actually was thinking about it while you said it. I think that also goes to show we're so used to buying things online. You think of something, you take out your phone, you buy it. I actually have to think a bit what actually is the last thing I bought, but it's DIY hardware tools. So a bit random, but I had some situation at home and I had this idea that, you know what, I'm not going to call someone, I'm going to try and fix it myself. So that's what I did. I bought it on Lazada, and in terms of data, I honestly wouldn't know. It's just the usual stuff. I have an account there. I've used it many times before. Nothing went wrong. I got my stuff. I paid. No fraud. Worked, right? So I think that's also, in a way, buying from places that you're comfortable with, that you're used to. It builds a certain level of trust, and then I think that barrier also tends to go down. So that's from my own personal perspective. In terms of my background, so as was mentioned at the introduction, I'm a partner at a company called AccelerAsia. We're headquartered in Singapore, operate across the region, have offices across the region here in Thailand as well. The short of it is of what we do is we, on one side, invest in technology companies, but on the other side, we also help these companies expand across the region. So if I drill down a little bit more into that space and then also link it to my experience over the years, is really bridging the needs of large enterprises. For example, in the insurance space, that's a space where we've been very active for many years, bridging their needs with technology, right? And really looking at what is, the cutting edge new technology solutions out there that maybe do not have the reach of, let's say, the large names that exist in the market today. So it's really, I would say, if I can translate this to one word or summarize it into one word, is accessibility, right? So how do we give access to, in this case, insurance companies to see what else is out there in terms of new technologies? And I've been doing this for a number of years, but always been in business development roles in technology. So I've specifically in insurance done a lot around data, personalization, AI, with all the usual suspects, the red ones, the blue ones, the orange ones, etc. So yeah, very happy to be here today as well. Also to share a bit more about what I see from a broader perspective of the challenges in Thailand. I talk to a lot of insurance companies in Thailand, and they share a lot of ideas, a lot of visions, but the reality is often a bit more challenging than that. So I think that's something we want to talk about today as well.
No, thanks, Jan. And I think you touched upon a very good subject out there. It's like how AccelerAsia is connecting corporates and insurance and how to utilize technology. But I think more so in utilization of big data, there's a lot, and as Henry mentioned earlier, how do you utilize that? And I think there's also that bridge that's necessary, matching the domain expertise of insurance and also assessing that big data. But yeah, we'll get into that later on. Sure, Prem, we're looking forward to hearing your last purchase online.
So for me, my last purchase online, I actually share my Shopee account with my wife. So if Shopee ever looks at my account and tries to profile me, they'll be very confused between gadgets, electronics, makeup, and other feminine products. So that data is definitely going to be confusing for them. But my personal purchase was a male fanny pack. I think that's the best way to put it. I sort of caved into, carrying a pouch in front to be more practical, utility. I guess. So yeah, utility, correct. So that was my last purchase. Take it how it is. A little background about myself. First of all, I'm actually Thai, so swadee krap to all the Thai people here. Come from e-commerce actually, entered insurance in about 2015 because I saw an opportunity to sell insurance online when nobody else was doing it. So I started a company called Frank Insurance Brokers. We sold insurance online in Thailand, one of the first to do it properly, full end-to-end. We raised funding from VCs in Hong Kong. We grew very, very quickly, and still today, some people still remember the penguin, which was our mascot at Frank. We did very well enough to be able to exit the company to Boltec in 2020. Boltec's still around, one of the largest InsurTechs in the world. Stayed with them for 2 more years, helping them expand the B2B enterprise business, closing partnership deals with DTAC, True Money, VFS, and a few other large-scale partners on the B2B distribution side. Decided to take a leave from there and start Eazy Digital again. And what we do now is we're an agency management platform for insurance companies. The way I look at it is essentially, if you have to put it from a data perspective, what I try to do now is to provide the data that is already existing within insurance companies and putting it available to the people who actually need it and use it on a daily basis. So making sure that it's not just there, but it's actually being able to be accessed, able to be viewed, and able to be actioned upon. So that's my focus right now, and then that's what I've been doing.
Thanks, Prem. You jumped the gun on my first question, actually. So Eazy Digital was named Start of the Year in 2023. Congratulations about that. How has big data contributed to your success, and what roles does it play in your business? But maybe we'll get into specifics, right? I mean, that's very much a canned question. Maybe specifically, could you share a little bit more about your experience in working with one of your clients in Thailand? What were the initial challenges that you had? And in terms of adoption as well from the agents, how did that look like? Yeah.
Yeah, so one thing is a lot of companies have a lot of data, and that's very normal, right? You have email data, you have profiling data, you have purchasing data, you've got actionable data, unactionable data, you got old, new. All of this, everyone looks at data as something you need to hoard and something you need to just keep. It's actually not. Data is something that needs to be maintained. Data is something that needs to be looked at, has to be updated, it has to be contacted. If you have a list of emails that are 10 years old or something, that email is as useless as it is, everything else that it doesn't been touched for 10 years. It needs to be communicated upon all the time. So what we try to do with our platform is all this data that most insurance companies already have, whether it's around their agents or around their customers, we build this front end UI UX to give accessibility and visibility to that data to the right parties so that they can action upon it. So a very simple example is sales report, right? Nearly every company here, every insurance company here has the data for all of their agents and all of their previous and past sales. But most of the time, this data is presented to the agents in the form of a statement or a PDF report. Now, is that really actionable, or can they take something away from it? Not really, because it's a snapshot. But when you take that data and you put it into a dashboard and something that the agent can filter, can look at trends, and then you apply forecasting on top of that. Now that data becomes something useful because you're showing the agent seasonality. You're showing them what have they done in the past that has worked, what have they done now that is not working, where their sales are going to end up towards the end of the year or towards the end of the quarter, towards the end of the month. That's taking simple data that you already have, but just changing the way you show it to your agents and brokers. Simple as that actually gives a significant impact to the overall company's performance and sales.
Okay, if I may double click on some items. You mentioned about data accuracy, and I think quite knowing to all, insurance company tend to struggle with matching, having accurate data for very good reasons. You have multiple platforms, updated various ways. How do you deal with that, and how do you manage that at your organization?
So with data, there's a rule: garbage in, garbage out. It's very simple. If you have crap coming in, you're always going to get crap going out, and it's going to be unclean. It's going to be unmanageable. You're not going to be able to take it to analyze anything. So what we try to do is we try to fix it from the root. Right? You can always, send your data to a team of people to try to clean it. But if garbage is going to continue coming in, you're not actually fixing the problem. You're just fixing the symptoms. So to fix the problem, you need to manage that data entry part first. You need to make it more structured. You need to add validation. You need to add rules. You need to make it filterable, drop downs, checkboxes, anything like that to make it more clean all the way from the entry point. Now, once you've done that, then the exercise of cleaning existing data becomes a one-time exercise. You do that one time, and the rest of your data coming in is also going to be clean. Therefore, whenever you do want to run it or you want to analyze it in the future, it becomes accurate and it becomes usable.
So you set the foundation on what it should look like for them to be able to ingest it in your platform.
Correct.
And then the legacy data would follow it.
So, something simple, a very practical example is an application form coming for a new quotation request or let's say, a new policy request from an agent or a broker coming to your insurance company. Now, when that comes in, most of the time right now, it comes in from multiple channels. It can come in from a line account. It can come in from a phone call, come in from an email, and all in different formats, in different structures, and completely random. Now, somebody right now within the organization is taking the duty of taking all that information and typing it into some sort of structured format to be able to issue a quotation for the customer. Now, that process means you're handling that completely manually, and that person often gets overloaded. It therefore also reduces the time and effort. It takes time and effort to give a quotation to a customer when it shouldn't be that difficult. And now imagine if the application is coming in a physical form where it's based on someone's handwriting, it's uneligible, unclear, you type in the wrong information, you type in the wrong phone number, wrong address. You actually have work you have to do later on to clean that up as well, because when the customer receives their policy, now you got to adjust the phone number, you got to do an endorsement, or you have to change it. triple the work now just to fix that one entry that was wrong initially. But if you have validation, if you have it in a structured format where it's visible to everyone, and you have one source of truth, it becomes a lot more visible and a lot more clear.
Thanks. Very clear. I'll give you some time to take a breather. I'll switch over to Henry. So hearing what we had heard from Prem with Eazy Digital, for Munich Re, massive organization over 100 years. From your perspective, what are the challenges when it comes to big data integration? Because we spoke about, obviously Prem is working in the Thailand market agency, still some challenges with like legacy data. I'd imagine Munich Re has much more legacy data to deal with and such a large organization. What are the challenges currently that you're experiencing?
Maybe I'll switch gear a little bit. I think the General Secretary started with a speech talking about big data, about being open to change, reminding us of PDPA along the way. I want to echo that because I think that's a very important thing and very relevant to the question being asked by Cyrus. In my conversations with executives in Asia, I think what has been very clear to me is that the culture of change is not quite there yet. I think it's not so much the data itself. I think it's the readiness for organizations to change together because we are talking about something really complex these days, and it touches on different functional areas. So you need underwriters, the actuaries, your data scientists, legal, and other stakeholders in the organizations to agree on the direction. So the inertia to change is one thing that I notice. Having the right resources and resources willing to change along with the landscape, I think that needs to be cultivated, that internal culture. Obviously, you have the typical stuff, right? Legacy systems. They're expensive to change. I understand that, but you got to start somewhere, right? And oftentimes, I would get into conversations on it would go along the line of like, okay, we can't afford to make the whole change. Let's look at what is most important now with the budget given. So typically, what I've seen the directions taken was to look at the transformation project in phases. I think that's responsible and it makes a lot of sense to apply your budget where it's most painful and most important to your business. And yeah, I think the risk management function is really important. So in the context of the area that I represent, which is in risk management, underwriting specifically, digital underwriting, it's very, very crucial, right? Because I've seen the points that I just made about culture, about people, about resources. We tend to forget the human story. So I echo the Secretary General earlier, and I like what he said about the human part, right? Because I think that's sometimes overlooked because we're so focused on innovation. But what drives innovation, right? Technology should only be the enabler. Don't lose sight of your people, right? Make sure they're taken care of. Make sure you upskill them. Make sure that they feel comfortable in using the technology so that you can be more successful. I think some organizations, even if they have the money to spend on high-tech stuff, but if the people that have been with them don't feel supported, I think they notice that they couldn't really fully maximize the benefit of innovation. I have many examples of that, unfortunately.
Right. How about in your current role in Munich Re and the solutions that you provide? Do you deal with like having to merge data for one company to another external source? How does that look like from like a day-to-day operations perspective?
In a lot of conversations these days, because of the frenzy in the media around AI, this has come up more and more these days. How do we use non-traditional data sources to drive instant underwriting decision at the point of sale, right? So non-traditional sources are, I don't have my slides up, but it's okay. I'll try to recall what I put on the slide. Would be simple things like information from your banker partners, or it could be from an RPPG screener to get your biometrics. It could even be from a telecom company, right? We have a use case in China where we're looking into using telecom data to see where this applicant typically hangs out at, and is it at a pub like at 3 a.m. in the morning, or someone who plays golf and exercises regularly. So that could be in the future potential use case for these non-traditional data sources to help underwrite an applicant. This will help insurance company as a whole, because the basic premise of insurance is to provide protection, but at the same time mitigate and spread the risks among a large group of people. So you want to make sure that people who live a healthy lifestyle are rewarded, right? Basically, when it comes to big data integration, that's what we focus on. Yeah.
Okay, and I think the open data policy that the Office of the Insurance Commissioner in Thailand has recently launched is quite aligned with that to help insurance companies in Thailand achieve that success. Speaking of which, Yan, you're next. Could you share some, being in the venture capital space, and as you've mentioned earlier, bridging innovation to traditional corporates, can you share some success stories, if there's any, and notable examples on how big data has been successfully adopted?
Sure. If it's okay, I'd like to break it down into a couple of parts.
Yep.
So I'd like to share the success stories at the end.
Go ahead.
Because I'd like to first talk about what really are typically the barriers that we see to do anything, really, in terms of big data, AI, and obviously very broad topic, and really how to address that. Because I think this whole panel can probably list out many examples of those that we've all seen, where there's a lot of discussions, there's a lot of events like this, there's a lot of visions and all of that, and then everyone goes back to the office, and then it's executing on that is a lot tougher. And that's why I do want to drill down on that a little bit. So what is often, I just want to anecdotally share some things that I've seen. So again, lots of discussions with big insurers talking about, big and small insurers talking about AI and big data and how can we leverage this and leverage that and do that and do this. And I think I want to, also build a bit on what Henry shared, where I think the challenge also, because it's so broad in terms of application, is that people get lost in the noise, right? Let's transform the whole business and let's throw millions of dollars at it and see what comes out of it. What's interesting is what I actually typically see is the insurance companies, or really any organization in the wider ecosystem that really makes quick moves and decisions on these topics, are actually not the guys with the biggest wallet, right? Because this is something I hear a lot. I talk to insurance executives and they say, well, yeah, we just don't have the budget right now to do exciting things with AI or big data. And I think this was also shared earlier by the Secretary General as well, that barrier has come down significantly. There are a lot of solutions out there to start small, to do things, to test things. And I think really the key takeaway there is, how do you move into more of a test and learn mindset? And I think this is also in line with what Henry said. Technology is just the enabler, right? So don't get stuck on, we need, I don't know, a solution and throw millions of dollars at that, and then it will solve all our problems. In fact, it probably will take you 2 years and then you still haven't really figured out what you're solving. So think small, test and learn, get a small squad together and really identify, why are we even doing this in the first place? Right? I get it. Like, AI is exciting and everyone is kind of chasing AI application to the business. But if we take a couple of stats, right, to really figure out where is this important, where is this relevant? If we just look at Thailand, one of the largest GI products is motor insurance. Probably most of you in the room have motor insurance. The scale of fraud on motor insurance is, based on different estimates, anywhere between 6 to 8 billion Thai baht a year. right? That is serious money. And that's just money that's basically flowing out the door. And through a study from McKinsey, I believe, they actually made a calculation that roughly 30% of that can be removed by utilizing AI on fraud detection in claims. Now, not saying everyone should immediately rush out and try to solve that themselves, but there are a lot of solutions out there. There's a lot of best practice cases out there. And again, to tie it back to the test and learn, look at where your biggest challenges are and really try to apply a solution to that challenge in maybe a small test case, and then build out from there, right? Because, you know, I want to use an analogy. It's, if you're an insurance company, let's use an analogy of an oil tanker, right? Trying to turn that oil tanker into a very fast maneuverable ship is going to be quite challenging, right? But maybe if we just change, let's say, the Wi-Fi on the ship, that already improves the internet on the ship. So you're already improving parts of the ship, right? It doesn't mean that you have to turn the whole thing around. So anyway, so I think that is, you know, if I really look at what typically is the biggest barrier, it's trying to do too many things, it's trying to do things at too large a scale. But when you test and learn, also be comfortable with actually executing a test. Because this is something I also see on the other extreme where, you know, there's a conclusion where it's like, okay, well, this is a bit too difficult, let's just have another hackathon, right? And then they have a hackathon with the internal team, they come up with really cool ideas, and it goes into a drawer somewhere, and or a virtual drawer somewhere, and nothing happens with it. So anyway, I think finding that balance in between too big, too small with no execution is extremely critical. If I take a couple of examples, I just want to highlight two. One is around claims fraud detection, where again, test and learn. Take a small batch of claims. There are solutions out there that can be applied to this. So in this example, there's an AI solution that was utilized to effectively screen the claims, see which ones can go straight through processing, so you can just pay out, customer experience is great, people are happy, and then another set actually needs to get reviewed and another set is rejected. Simply by doing that in a matter of minutes, at the most, is a game changer, right? And I think if we translate it to Thailand, over 40% of claims, and I think in certain products is definitely higher, are entirely manually processed. That is, I mean, you know, data entry on a computer screen is not digitizing the process, right? That's okay, you could argue it's digitizing, but it's not automating much. So that's one case where I think, you know, simply just starting small, getting those results, and then adding more and more policies to that, that works, right? You can do 5,000 people, 5,000 claims, and then go from there. Another example, I think, is understanding, this is a bit more around the customer acquisition, let's say, trying to understand better what prospects are doing. So I actually had a chat with someone from Google. This is more anecdotal, so I don't know, you know, how real these stats are, because it was more just a casual chat. But apparently Google had done a study in Southeast Asia that I believe, if I remember correctly, over 80% of insurance purchases in Southeast Asia are researched online. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting is if you look at the actual policies closed, it's nowhere near 80% online, right? For various reasons, certain products don't exist online, regulators don't allow everything to be sold online, and so on and so forth. But what it shows is there's a huge online to offline opportunity there, right? And I'm sure all of you have heard the O2O concept from China, which is now pretty much, you know, standard practice all over the place, at least in terms of this idea, this concept. I think that's an area as well where we've seen some success cases on collecting this online data, really building behavioral profiles of prospects, even anonymous prospects, and learning how to talk to them in a more relevant way, right? Even in the purchasing process at the top of the funnel. So yeah, I would say those are two areas that I'm quite excited about.
You had so much to cover. I'm trying to pick one that I wanted to have a follow-up question on. No, you pointed out something quite interesting, and I think this was what we were discussing earlier today. The bright, shiny object for corporate innovation is always there. And having worked with a lot of corporates in this space, Jan, have you facilitated or have you worked out a way to figure out which projects don't go to the drawer and which ones actually scale? Or if you haven't, what are your thoughts around that to make sure that it gets close to the strategy? Because I think what I also want to share with everyone right now is in the past 12, 24 months, there's an immense pressure in the industry to generate revenue and profitability and cost savings. So the appetite for exploration has minimized somewhat. So there needs to be an avenue to have a nice balance of long-term strategy, but also immediate results. What are your experiences around that?
So, I mean, this is a million, billion, $1 trillion question.
Yeah.
So I don't have a straightforward answer to that of is there a way that we can address that problem? But what I would say is if I share where I have seen this work better, where insurance companies have been able to address this, and I know this sounds like a very simple solution and it's much easier said than done, but typically it is executive sponsorship to test and learn, right? And unfortunately, I just don't see this enough, right? So there's a lot of talk again about visions, but to make it really practical, create a fund of budget that teams can play around with, that they can just throw at POCs with technologies. I mean, I see cases where an insurance company decides to do a POC for, a 5-figure sum or even lower, a 4-figure sum. And they say, great, super excited, we want to run this. Let's do a 2-month project and see what we can get out of it. And then procurement says, great, but we need to do a procurement process and it's going to take 6 to 9 months. I mean, then obviously you can't move fast enough, right? So I think it really does boil down to executive sponsorship to clear the barriers all the way from start to finish. How do we make sure we can even start these test projects? How do we actually learn from them, get executive visibility on the results, and then endorsement to actually execute further? That is really the biggest barrier, if you ask me.
I think another thing, maybe from your experience as well with opening up Frank and this whole insurance mall concept in Thailand, for the developing markets, the education piece is also something that's quite important. What are your thoughts around that and how the insurance mall can play a part in that, particularly in Thailand?
Look, educating a customer or changing their behavior is one of the most expensive things you can do. Without Ensogo, without Lazada in the Thai market, e-commerce would not be where it is today. But you look at those companies were not profitable. Those companies still have not made a profit till today. They spent billions and billions in marketing and changing customer behavior. 10 years ago, not a lot of people here would have purchased things online as freely as they do now. But we sit on the back of those guys who invested in the market to change our behaviors to buy things online. Insurance is the same thing. I had to spend over, a lot of money on online marketing.
$1 trillion.
The NDA kicked in. Yeah, a lot of money on marketing and getting customers to realize that this is the journey, that how you should buy online, and this is how much, how you come to buy, what you have to pay with, what information you have to see. All of these things takes a lot of time to educate the customers on. So
supposing the money is there, $1 trillion, what's the top initiative for you to educate the Thai market online?
Oh, that's a tough one. Look, there's traditional way of marketing, there's content marketing, you can do even courses, you can get celebrities, whatever you need to do in terms of marketing to drive the traffic. Go on TikTok, do viral videos. Honestly, make it so that even the agents who are distributing it try to distribute it online as opposed to face-to-face. Make it accessible to everyone, the masses. That's a lot of work, and there's a lot of pieces. There's no one bullet that's going to answer this question, and this is honestly something that every digital company, not just in the insurance industry, but in the auto industry, in the travel industry, in e-commerce, they're all trying to solve this problem. How do we get everyone to come online to buy? You look at travel industry, before Agoda, before Booking.com, 15, 20 years back, all the application process to get a hotel or to get a flight was through travel agents and through ticketing agents. Now those don't exist anymore because everyone as an industry said, okay, we need to move online. It's going to save everyone a lot of money. So we need to all do this together. And that's what the money would be used for, to drive everyone forward.
And I think you actually answered it. You mentioned accessible channels where people are. There you go. Thank you. Speaking of Thailand, Henry, having a global lens on how things are, how do you think is the difference on utilizing big data between mature markets like in the West or Singapore for that matter as compared to developing nations like Thailand?
We probably don't have to go that far away. If you look closer in Korea, for example,
Okay.
I would want to compliment them for what they've been doing in the last couple of decades. Bringing everyone back to this topic of big data for insurance companies, I would say Koreans have done a very good job, like with their industry databases. I think there are three I could think of: ICIS, NICE, and the National Health database. And they track different information, right, down to detailed claims, policy benefits, financial information of the applicant. So imagine how you as an insurer can benefit from that, right? When you're underwriting risk at a point of sale, how you can quickly determine the status of your applicant without asking too many questions. And your dependency on disclosure is going to reduce a lot, so you don't even have to ask that many questions. So something for the industry to think about. And I think, sure enough, some of the Western developed countries are quite far ahead as well in that regard with electronic health records, EHR, the use of LLMs on underwriting, specific cases where they have to go through hundreds of pages of legal documents. That's where you can really use technology to extract information quickly for the purpose of underwriting, which is one of the two key functions of an insurance company, right? To manage your risk. So yeah, you actually don't have to look that far. Japan, I'm sure it's also quite advanced in that regard.
What do you think would have contributed to the success of Korea being able to utilize that data, and what could a market like Thailand learn from it?
I think definitely OIC is on the right path, right? Driving
Yes.
this change. So in my LinkedIn post, I said that it's really refreshing to see that regulators are not just promoting InsurTech, promoting the use of big data, but actually championing some of the innovation, encouraging people to embrace this change together. As my esteemed panelist said, it's not a job to be done alone. You need an ecosystem. You need collaborations among different parties. You need InsurTech that's coming in from outside Thailand to invest. The willingness is there, but I think maybe it's just as a matter of time for people to come together. I know OIC's, as the Secretary General mentioned this morning, is working on something on big data, and I think the time is ripe for that.
And this isn't planned. That's very much spot on. That was what was mentioned at the opening earlier. Building a community for InsurTech and harnessing that technology from outside Thailand coming in, and effectively Thailand becoming a key player in the Southeast Asia market, sans Singapore. With that being said, Jan, so you have a very, we did like a broad mature market insurance reach and then narrowing it to Thailand. How about you, cross-industry? Outside of insurance, what are you seeing out there where the Thai insurance market could learn from and be able to utilize from a technology, big data perspective?
Across industries within Thailand or?
Within Thailand would be best.
Okay.
In general,
Well,
is also
I don't want to rank industries in that sense per se, but I think to Prem's point as well about e-commerce, I think what they've been doing very well is lowering the barrier to engage in terms of conversion, so actually buying stuff online, handing over your data to e-commerce. E-commerce obviously can be very broad, right? Because in Prem's case, he was talking about marketplaces, but we're also talking about airlines, for example. That's also e-commerce. You buy a ticket from an airline or you buy it from an OTA platform. And I think, if you generally look at the leaders who are able to sell online And I actually want to connect this back to the big data topic, because the more you can build a relationship online with conversions, the more data you will collect, right? It's as simple as that, because the online data is obviously, much richer than what you would get with, let's say, a face-to-face agent meeting. And I think there is a real big opportunity to learn from, the strong players in e-commerce, where I actually want to kind of drop in a case, not by name, but a case that I found very interesting in Europe of an insurance company that has had a very successful content strategy, not even content marketing strategy to convert, but they produce a lot of content to educate the market about their products. Why should you buy it online? What are the advantages of that? What's the advantage of giving us your data? Things like that. And then you build a trust relationship where that then actually turns into more online sales, which then turns into more behavioral data, which then turns into a bigger data set that you can use, and so on and so forth. So I think really addressing that, let's say, tip of the spear, where you initially engage with your prospects and customers, getting that trust so they actually have an exchange with you. You give them valuable education about the products and how to buy them, and then they will reciprocate with their behavior, right? And I think that is something that is a big opportunity for insurance in Thailand.
Thorough engagement with the overall customer lifecycle management.
Yeah, and give them something valuable before they even are a customer.
Which means more money to spend on marketing. With that, we're over time. Just one quick round, lightning round. Insurance industries over here. What would you recommend for them to be able to start integrating first baby steps based on what you understand of the current Thai market? Go ahead.
Find a specific problem you want to solve for, and then look at the data that you would need to solve that particular problem. Don't try to solve everything with big data. It's too big. It's like my panelist over here said, it's never going to happen. Small problem, find the data to support that problem, and then fix that particular problem first, and then move on to the next one. After a couple of years, you'll be good to go. Henry?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go
ahead. Okay. No, because I just wanted to say it's very much in line with what Prem said. Just really find a pain point. And the thing is, if you're not really sure what are the top pain points that you can address, there are people in the industry, for example, Cyrus, there are people in the industry who know what the biggest challenges typically are and what also has the biggest impact, right? Because you might find a problem, but then the effort to solve that problem is huge. So start small, test and learn, reasonable impact but low effort, and then go from there.
Yeah, and it sucks to go last because they get the chance to talk about the good points first. Maybe I'll just rephrase it differently. I think do your laundry, right? Data work is like doing your laundry. Shouldn't procrastinate. Start small. Start now, because you need to sort out what's the dirty ones from the clean ones, and how do you keep storing them in a meaningful way. Don't just say, oh, I want to keep everything, right? It's going to be very expensive. And you like garbage in, garbage out that you mentioned. So come up with a clear data strategy. And that data strategy needs to complement your business strategy, right? A lot of people think about innovation. They invest the money, but they don't change the structure, the business process to complement that strategy. So do a laundry.
Thank you so much. And maybe just to wrap up, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, for organizations to start on like big data initiatives, I like start small but with a reasonable impact. But overall, data hygiene, I think it's laundry hygiene will be very important. Infrastructure, if your company's built out for it. People, I think it's one thing we touched upon. Dedicated teams, executive support as well. And I think one thing we glossed over was actually security as well. I think we spent a lot of time on the marketing stuff. But thank you very much, everyone, for your time. Hopefully it was a worthwhile session for everyone. Thank you to my esteemed panelists. And have a good morning. I say sawadee kap.